On May 28, 1942, Ivan Rauchberger watched as one of his school friends, Buddy Stein, and his father were marched through town. Buddy's father was a German Jewish architect who had fled Germany in 1934. The Steins had built a beautiful home in Spišská Nová Ves near Ivan's family house. Buddy was 17 years old, the same age as Ivan at that time. None of the Stein family survived. Their large transport left Slovakia for Lublin. The next stop after Lublin was Auschwitz. Buddy Stein, mentioned in this new book about the first transport to Auschwitz, surely prayed in front of the same Torah scrolls that are so carefully maintained at the Northwood and Pinner Liberal Synagogue. Dear participants of today's commemorative service in Northwood, accept please my greetings and best memories of my recent visits to your synagogue and our joint exhibition dedicated to Aaron Grünhut from Bratislava. May I also thank you for keeping alive the memory of those Slovak Jews who suffered and perished in monstrous Holocaust years. You do it through spiritual connection via adoration of the memorial Torah scrolls from Spišská Nová Ves, but also by visiting Jewish heritage sites in my country and particularly in the beautiful town of Spišská Nová Ves, a good choice for Bar Mitzvah celebrations. May these ties be useful for all of us, our minds, mutual understanding, respect and solidarity, but also helping us to overcome difficulties of current pandemic. Have a blessed Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. How wonderful it is to be able to welcome all of you, as well as, of course, our illustrious guests this morning, the ambassador of the Slovak Republic, last night the ambassador of the Czech Republic. Last night we had the Czech anthem to start our service this morning, the Slovak anthem. My father was a little disappointed that we didn't play them one straight after the other, because the Czech joke is normally that the Moravian national anthem is what comes between the Czech and the Slovak national anthem, which is the silent break to take a breath. But it is truly wonderful that we are able to come together, even if it's not under the normal circumstances, to celebrate this Shabbat as a community that commemorates the memory of all those who died in our Torah towns, but also who celebrates our Czech and Slovak heritage by not just keeping the memory alive, but by continuing that chain of memory, by continuing to read from our Torah scrolls. And today we'll be reading from the Torah scroll of Spišská Nová Ves. The ambassador pronounces it much more correctly than I do. But throughout the services, if you are regular, you will know that we read from all the scrolls on a regular basis. If you are newer to our congregation, watching maybe from afar, we try to always mention which scroll we're reading from and encourage you to learn a little bit about the heritage. If you visit our website, on the website there's a wonderful booklet that was produced about our Torah towns as well. And so as we come together as a community, we begin our service by forming a community, by physically placing the talit over our shoulders, whether you have one or not, feel wrapped in the presence of our holy community. And together we say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehitatef v'tzitzit.
We're joined in the sanctuary this morning, all safely distanced from each other. Ruth Collin, again, our music director, and my sister, and also Lydia Boffey. It is wonderful that the two of them are here to join us. Also because Ruth's children, Joseph and Jemima, have both read from the Shpishkanova Ves scroll for their bar and bat mitzvah. Indeed, Joseph then read his portion over in Shpishkanova Ves when the family made a visit. And also Lydia, for her bat mitzvah, read from that scroll from Slovakia. And this morning we're delighted that Lydia can sing for us at the beginning of our service, a song that she wrote as a reflection on her experience on our Kabbalat Torah trip to Prague, Terezin, and Kolin. It sings very much of the beautiful close connection and love that we as a community have with the Czech and Slovak lands.
The sky is a rosy sea, and the people, they all smile at me. The sound of silver being handed on, but the voices are never gone, never gone, never gone. Ancient walls and flower stalls and words we all can't quite recall. Crowded streets and dancing feet, but the ghetto grants a quiet seat. And all I can hear and all I can see in this big old, grand old, beautiful city is love, is love. Old houses tell their tales. On the water sits a misty trail. Leaves are falling and the songs are sung, but the memories will carry on, carry on, carry on. Ancient walls and flower stalls and words we all can't quite recall. crowded streets and dancing feet, but the ghetto grants a quiet seat, and all I can hear and all I can see in this big old, grand old, beautiful city is love, is love. Rain bounces off the stones, but the cold hasn't reached our bones. A flashing lens and a cheerful smile to remember when we didn't notice time anytime, anytime. Ancient walls and flower stalls and words we all can't quite recall. Crowded streets and dancing feet, but the ghetto grants a quiet seat, and all I can hear and all I can see in this big old, grand old, beautiful city is love, is love. All I can hear and all I can see in this big old, grand old, beautiful city is love.
There are times when we are able to hear a divine voice, to find the divine image within our souls, and to be at peace. When we have goosebumps on our skin and tingles up our spines, when we hear such beautiful words from a beautiful soul, we thank God for our soul, the one that joins us together in prayer this morning in sacred community.
Yetzarta, atana fakta bi, ve'ata meshamra bekibi. Elohai, Elohai, neshama, shenatata bi,
My God, the soul that you have given me is pure. You created it, formed it, and breathed it into me, and you sustain it within me. So long as there is a soul within me, I will give thanks to you, Eternal One, my God, and God of my ancestors, Sovereign of all worlds, guide of every human soul. We praise you, O God, in whose hands are the souls of all the living, and the spirits of all flesh. And together. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam. Baruch hu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. המהולל בפי עמו, משובח ומפואר בלשון חסידיו ועבדיו. בשבחות ובזמירות, נגדל לך ונמליכך, מלכנו יחיד חי העולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מהולל בתשבחות.
To you the stars of morning sing. From you their radiance bright did spring. And steadfast in their vigils day and night, your angels, flooded with fervour, ring your praise. They teach the holy ones to bring into your house the breath of early light.
Anim zmirot v'shirim erot, ki elecha nafshi tarov, nafshi himda batzel yate, chaladat korosotecha, midei dabri bigvodecha, homelibi el dodecha, yerov nasi hi alecha, ki nashita harok elecha.
Yishtabach shimcha la'ad malkeinu, ha'el ha'melech ha'gadol v'ha'kadosh b'shamayim uva'aretz. Ki lecha na'er Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu. Shir u'shvacha, Hallel וזמרה, ברכות והודאות, מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בשירי זמרה.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל, המאיר לארץ ולדרים עליה ברחמים, ובטובו מחדש בכל יום תמיד מעשה וראשית. מה רבו מעשיך אדוני, כולם בחוכמה עשית, מלאה הארץ קנייניך. תתברך אדוני אלוהינו על שבח מעשה ידיך, ועל מאורי אור שעשית יפארוך הסלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצר המאורות.
And let's read together. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching. Make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. We praise you, O God. In love you have called your people Israel to serve you.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לעוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring are these words now and forever. True it is, eternal one, that you are our sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel together sang to you this song.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נטע בקודש נורא, תפילות אוסף אלה.
A new song the redeemed sang to your name at the shore of the sea. With one accord they gave thanks and proclaimed your sovereignty.
Adonai imloch
Sechatai tiftach ufi agita kilatecha. Adonai Sechatai tiftach ufi agita kilatecha. Eternal God, open up my lips, that my mouth shall declare your praise. Eternal God, open up my lips, that my mouth shall declare your praise.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim v'Koneh Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevii Geula Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Hozeh u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah.
Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Machayei metim atah Rab lechoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid hageshem,
Mazriach hashemesh u'morid hatal.
Mahakel Hayim B'chesed Mechayeh Meitim B'rachamim Rabim Somech noflim Rofeh Hoalim Umatir Hasurim Umakayem Emunato Lishenei Ava Michamocha Ba'gevurot U'midomelach Melech Memit U'machayeh U'matzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah lahachayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Machayei hametim. Nekadesh et shimcha be'olam, Kashem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, Kakatuv al yad nevi'echa.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melech ha'aretz, Kavodo.
Kavodo male olam.
Baruch kavod Adonai, Mimekomo.
במקום מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור, hallelujah.
From generation to generation we will make known your greatness. To the end of time we will proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O our God, shall never depart from our lips. We praise you, Eternal One, the Holy God.
ישמחו במלכותך,
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג. עם קדשי שביעי, עם קדשי שביעי, כולם יספרו
ויתענוגו מטובך, והשיבי רצית בו, וקידשתו, והשיבי רצית בו, וקידשתו, חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה בראשית.
And together, our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments, and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts that we may serve you in truth. In your gracious love, eternal one, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts, and may all Israel who hallow your name be exalted by its peace. We praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Sabbath. רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל, ותפילתם באהבה תקבל, ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך. ברוך אתה אדוני, שעותך לבדך, ביראה נעבוד.
מודים אנחנו לך, שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, לעולם ועד. צור חיינו, מגן אישנו, אתה הוא לדור ודור. נודה לך ונספר תהילתך, על חיינו המסורים בידיך, ועל נשמותינו הבקורות לך, ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלותיך וטובותיך, שבכל עת ערב ובוקר וצהריים. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך, ולך נאה להודות.
חסד ברחמים, חן וחסד, חן וחסד ברחמים, ברחמים, שלום, טובה וברכה, שים שלום, טובה וברכה, שים שלום, טובה וברכה, שים שלום, טובה וברכה. עלינו ועל כל ישראל, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, עמך שים שלום, טובה וברכה, שים שלום, טובה וברכה, טובה וברכה, טובה וברכה.
ברוך אתה אדוני, עושה השלום.
Shalom, shalom, bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam, uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Amen. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael.
And as we turn to our Torah service, we have a special treat for you this Shabbat. It's always our custom on our Czech and Slovak celebratory weekend to invite members of our community who've been particularly engaged in preserving the history and preserving the memory of those who died in our Czech Torah towns, and to also do the research on finding out about where our scrolls are from, what the life of the community was like, to give those honors and mitzvot during our service. And it's our privilege that we'll be able to give our Torah blessings and our Haftarah blessings out to those, to some of those who've been very involved with this work. Unfortunately, we seem to have a bit of a problem with our Torah cam. We did try to fix it in the very last moment with Rabbi Aaron standing on a very tall ladder, but the rabbis clearly failed on that one. But you will be able to still glimpse into the Torah scroll as we lift it up to show you during Hagbah, so you are not totally missing out, but that's just unfortunate. We maybe tried a bit too much this week, but I think we'll turn to our liturgy.
Absolutely, and well, I hope you do glimpse it. I have to say the Shpishkanova Vest scroll is the heaviest one as well, so it takes a lot of koyach to get it up, but at least we're in the middle of the Torah scroll in the book of Leviticus at the moment. That's the one good thing about the book of Leviticus.
Kol olamim umemsheltecha b'chol tovato. Adonai melech, Adonai melech, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai osle'amo yitet, Adonai yaveh et amo.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlu Adonai eti and Arobabo Shemo Yakdav. Let us magnify the Eternal One. Together, let us exalt God's name.
Lecha Adonai Hagdolah, V'Hagvura V'Tiferet, V'Hanetzach V'Hahod, Ki Hol B'Hashamayim U'Va'aretz, Lecha Adonai HaMamlecha, V'Hamid Naseh La'Hod La'Rosh.
The beauty of having a double portion of Bahar Behukotai and being liberal is we can dip in and out of both. So we're reading the last verse of Bahar, then before beginning again with Behukotai. Please do join along with me at home. If you have a Chumash in front of you, you will have the translation in a few moments as well. Last night I concluded the service with these words: Eternal God, be with us as you were with our ancestors. Never leave us or forsake us. Incline our hearts towards you and lead us in your ways. When we think of the Shoah, issues of God and our relationship with God can be challenging. And so, as I mentioned last week in my sermon, I do refer you to it. Sometimes we need to think of a different way of approaching God. Our Torah portion has Moses adjuring the Israelites to follow in God's commandments when they enter the land. It is done so in this case with a list of blessings and curses. Thankfully, I'm only reading the blessings. And again, it does conclude with the thought of how we must approach God. I will be ever present, it promises in the end. I will be ever present in your midst. I will be your God, and you shall be my people.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarach. Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Lo titnu ba'artzachem lechishtakhavot alecha, ki ani Adonai Elohechem. Et shabtotai tishmaru, umukadshi tira'u, ani Adonai. Im bechukotai telechu, ve'et mitzvotai tishmaru, ve'asitem otam, v'natati gishmechem be'itam, v'natna ha'aretz yuvul'a, ve'et sasadeh, yutan pri'o, v'hiskig lechem daish, et batsir uvatsir yasig et zera, va'achaltem lachmachem l'sova, v'shavtam levetach ba'artzachem. Natati shalom be'eretz v'shachavtam ve'ein macharid v'hishbati haya ra'a min ha'aretz v'cherev lo ta'avor ba'artzachem ridfetem et oivechem v'naflu lifnechem lecherev v'radfu mikem chamisha me'a u'me'a mikem Ravava yirdafu v'naflu oivechem lifnechem lecherev. Ufaniti elechem v'hifreti etechem v'harbeti etechem v'hakimoti et briti etechem v'achaltem yashan noshan v'yashan mipnei chadash totzi'u v'natati mishkanei b'tochacham v'lo tig'al nafshi etechem v'hithalalti b'tochachem v'hayiti lachem le'elohim v'atem tihyu li la'am.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natat b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato.
And we chose as our Haftarah this week, again, not quite the traditional one, but a psalm which you might be familiar with. It's one of the psalms that forms part of the Hallel. In our Siddur, it's the psalm that's selected for Chanukah, actually. But I think you will see why we decided that it's not just a wonderful connection to our Torah portion, and we didn't just decide it. We always go back to the wonderful alternative Haftarot of Chaim Stern whenever we're not quite sure if the traditional Haftarah really will resonate with our Shabbat. So this Haftarah suggested by Chaim Stern we found to be particularly fitting for this Shabbat.
We praise you, Eternal One, our God, Sovereign of the universe. You inspired faithful prophets and took pleasure in the words they spoke in truth.
We praise you, O God, for the gift of Torah, your servant Moses, your people Israel, and the prophets of truth and righteousness.
I love the Eternal One who hears my voice, my pleas, whose ear is turned to me whenever I call. The bonds of death encompassed me, the torments of Sheol overtook me. I came upon trouble and sorrow, and I invoked the name of the Eternal One. Save me, O God, save me. The Eternal One is gracious and just. Our God is compassionate. The Eternal One protects the simple. I was brought low, and God saved me. Be at rest once again, O my soul, for the Eternal One has been good to you. You have delivered me from death, my eyes from tears, my feet from stumbling. I shall walk before the Eternal One in the lands of the living. I trust in the Eternal One. Out of great suffering I spoke, and I said rashly, all men are false. How can I show my gratitude, O God, for all your kindnesses? I raised a cup of deliverance and invoked the name of the Eternal One. I will pay my vows to the Eternal One in the presence of all God's people. The deaths of the faithful ones is grievous in God's sight. O Eternal One, I am your servant, the child of your maidservant. You have undone the cords that bound me. I shall bring my offerings of thanks and call upon your name. I will pay my vows to the Eternal One in the presence of all God's people, in the courts of the house of the Eternal One, in the midst of Jerusalem. Hallelujah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sur kol ha'alamim tzaddik b'chol hadorot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'oseh ha'medaber u'mekayim shekol davarav emet b'tzedek. Al ha'torah v'al ha'avodah v'al ha'nbiim v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenotata lanu Adonai Eloheinu לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Amen. Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask your blessing for our British leaders and also our Czech and Slovak leaders as well, those who have graced our presence in our services this Shabbat, and those who continue to lead their countries. Make them conscious of their responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in our countries a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, so that they may be a force of righteousness and peace in the life of humanity.
Eternal God, as you blessed our ancestors in generations past, bless now this congregation, its leaders and its members, and all who create this fantastic community which knows no boundary. Comfort the sorrowing hearts among us, and heal those in anxiety or pain. May we all find here community and friendship, renewal of purpose and hope, a deeper understanding of our heritage, and a sense of your abiding presence. Bless all congregations of the House of Israel throughout the world. Let those who live under oppressive rule soon be freed, and may we all unite to witness to your truth and do your will.
And together, Eternal God and Rock and Redeemer,
grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream and to be a haven for the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with faithfulness to the aims of its founders, to develop the land for the benefit of all its inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice. May they live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbors, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision, that out of Zion shall go forth Torah, and the word of God from Jerusalem.
Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado.
Odo aleret v'shamayim, v'yarem keren le'amo tehila lochol hatzidav libnei Yisrael am karavo. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Behold my Torah, I give it to you. Do not forsake it. It is a tree of life to those who hold it fast, and all who cling to it find happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace.
Ashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Hadesh Yameinu Kakedem Hadesh Yameinu Kakedem Kakedem.
We now turn to another guest, well, not a guest, our Emeritus Rabbi Dr. Andrew Goldstein, to give this morning's sermon.
May 2020, and we just celebrated in a lockdown way the 75th anniversary of VE Day. Had this virus not arrived, we would in this synagogue be holding our annual Czech and Slovak Shabbat on the 6th of May, I was due to return to Kolín to open another exhibition on the theme of Rabbi Richard Feder, the last rabbi of the community. But hey ho, here we are on Zoom. Last night, a wonderful reminder that to some extent, due to the work of MPLS, that we've been doing for over 40 years, there is a real hope of revival of Czech Jewry. And the newly appointed Rabbi David Maxa graced us with his Zoom presence. There's hope for the future, when so often our Czech weekends have been about the past. Forgive me if that is where I'm going to take you now, to the past. Take you back 75 years to May 1945, to Terezín, the concentration camp, where most of Kolín's Jews had been taken in 1942, and most of these onward to Auschwitz and other places of death. But on the 9th of May 1945, the Red Army reached Terezín and liberated it. On the 14th, they had to install 2 weeks of quarantine due to the typhus outbreak brought by thousands of Jews had been driven there on death marches from other camps. But now let Rabbi Feder take up the story. I'm using his words that you can find in Żydowski tragedy, the Jewish tragedy, The Last Act, which we at NPLS published in English just 5 years ago. Feder says, our big fear that the period of quarantine would be extended luckily turned out to be groundless. After a medical examination, they furnished us with pink ID cards, and this marked an end to all the formalities. The gates of the concentration camp were opened on Tuesday, the 29th of May. On Thursday, the 31st, a special coach was sent by a local municipal community to pick up the few remaining Colleen Jews. Our joy was huge and indescribable. We quickly bid farewell to our friends, loaded our small bundles, got on the coach, and at 4:30 in the afternoon, we left that vale of tears where we've been held for 3 years. We went through the gate and suddenly found ourselves in a country of new, beautiful freedom that had been gained by great sacrifice, whose value we appreciated the most, since we had missed it the most. We saw fields, meadows, gardens, forests, villages, and people, merry and cheerful people, Czech people, from whom we did not differ in any way once we'd taken off our Jewish badge. It was a public holiday at the time, and everybody was beautifully dressed, and they all waved their handkerchiefs at us. We were so moved that we hardly spoke during the journey. We could see clear traces of war everywhere, destroyed tanks, cars shot to pieces, barricades and soldiers. 3 hours later, we arrived at our beloved Colleen. When we drove into the square, I said aloud the old Jewish elegy, "Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has granted us life and sustenance and permitted us to reach this season." We were welcomed at the front of the boys' school by Sisters of the Red Cross, and they afforded us our first delightful hospitality, for which we were very grateful. We were home again. We followed the example of the spider. We know what a spider does when somebody destroys its web. It spins another one and does not bother about the effort involved. It is necessary, and it does it for itself, which is what it likes to do. So we started a new life in a new home. Perhaps it will be a happy life, for we're old and our good friends have remained faithful. Even people who never spoke to us came up and welcomed us, reassuring us that they often thought about us. We like to believe them, and they certainly believed us when we tell them that there was not a single night we did not think of Colleen, its square streets, parks, pine woods, its beautiful Laber River, which we miss so much, and all our friends. And the letter we have in our archives at Northwood is of one that Rabbi Feder wrote to a Dr. Bondi in Kutna Hora some time later. He wrote, "After arriving Colleen, I went to hospital, where I lay for 4 weeks. I'm now back in my old house, Nachradbach 4, and working. I'm getting furniture bit by bit. In my large library, I have not found a page. The Gestapo destroyed all the books and archives of the Jewish community. But I try to forget that no member of my family has returned." "I'm working," he wrote, and there was much to do. But first, with his family murdered, his community decimated, he actually had to go through various bureaucratic procedures just to re-register the congregation. And then age 70, when he could have retired, he had to apply to the Jewish community in Prague for permission to become the rabbi of Colleen. Only the Nazis had caused an interruption to his service, and there were no other rabbis around. Bureaucracy survived the war. And so Feder, with just a handful of members, set about reviving the community. The synagogue had to be cleaned and rededicated, for the Nazis had used it to store blood-stained military uniforms. The new cemetery had been bombed by the British, I think, and many of the gravestones had been overturned. And a year after he had returned, he, of course, wrote the book I've got it here. This book, the one we had translated from Northwood, Jewish Tragedy. And it's probably the first book on the Shoah to be written. And with scant resources, he had designed and then built that impressive memorial in the new cemetery with the names of every one of his community, 480, who had been murdered in the Shoah. A few other survivors returned from the concentration camps. Erna Meissner returned from Belsen, and though she says people were generally nice, she went to the house of a pre-war friend whose mother greeted her with, you did return. Erna's mother had left property with her, and she was not going to give it back. But most were kind. And Erna's son sent me a photograph just last week of Erna, now 98, in the Jewish care home in Prague, where the COVID isolation has left her, but she is faithfully looked after by her non-Jewish carers. The late Hannah Greenfield returned and recalled that a few months later, Rabbi Feder reminded us of the first Rosh Hashanah, we should cut up an apple and dip it in honey in the hope of a new and sweeter life. Hannah recalls going to see Anka, her mother's cook, who had refused to leave them until the day of their deportation, despite the danger of a non-Jew doing that. She said, after the war, she brought me back to life, cooking and caring for me. Another survivor I'm in touch with, Ishka Lichter, recalled the time before the war she saw, and I quote, 3 people immersed in lively conversation in the street, Dr. Werner, Rabbi Feder, and the Czechoslovak church curate, whose name I can't recall. I was 8.5 years old when I saw them, but the image stayed with me the whole of my life. Yes, there was dialogue in Kolin. It was part of my upbringing, tolerance and respect. Well, we can only hope that this atmosphere that the few survivors felt in 1943, when they returned to Kolin after their terrible experiences and the realization that they were alone and their families murdered, still survives. Well, yes, we know it does, for the way in which that town has dedicated itself to preserving the memory of its lost Jewish community. But it's Shabbat, and just one last quote. Another survivor, Pavel, wrote, when I returned to Kolin, I longed to go to synagogue as soon as possible. The rabbi started to welcome the Shabbat queen. But when it was over, there was nobody to wish good Shabbos. Nobody to my left, nobody to my right. I looked up, the women's gallery was deserted. My mother, sister, grandmother, they used to wave to us, but all are gone. But we remain, Pavel. The rabbi stood next to me and said, we are obliged to carry on. It's a great task for us. There were 12 men and 5 women there that Shabbat. We said goodbye late in the evening. We went home with a certain idea how to carry on. And we also felt that however abandoned and desolate we are, there's always somebody who will embrace us, who will listen to us, and who will advise us. Our Rabbi Feder. 75 years later, our own synagogue is empty this morning, with only the rabbi and a chazanit present. But we are home, we are in our homes, joining them. And despite having to live in strange times, we might listen to Rabbi Feder. He said, we are obliged to carry on. And we do so. Our community is in great spirit and enthusiasm. Ingenious technology has kept us in touch, and we are more than just carrying on. And this Shabbat, we recall our Czech and Slovak communities and know that we are carrying on their traditions and that we have played our part in keeping alive their memory, and that for over 40 years, their memory has inspired us to carry on. As Rabbi Feder did on arrival back in Colleen 75 years ago, let us say, Shechianu, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu, lazman hazeh. Amen.
And as we celebrate this Slovak and Czech Memorial Scrolls weekend within our community, we also ask all of you to please type in messages of the names of individuals, of villages, towns and cities that you are remembering this morning, and also those of your own family and friends for whom you are remembering. In a few moments we will see the photos and be able to read the names of the Jews of Kolin whom we remember within our community, together with those Jews of Shpishkanova Ves, of the scroll that we read from this morning, of our Kladno scroll, which is in our casing just to my left, and also those of Trebon and Pilsen as well. And we will also be able to hear the words written and sung by Sam Finkelstein and his brother Aaron. He wrote it on the same trip, after the same trip as Lydia, on KT 2014-15, I think it was, a number of years ago now, about his recollections and how he was particularly moved by his visit to Theresienstadt and to the Jewish ghetto. So please do write up your names. We cannot promise to read them. They don't necessarily get to us in time, but we will read them afterwards. And you will be able to share their names with everybody else in our community. But for now, Aleinu l'shabech la'adon hakol, la'tet gedula liyotzeh bereshit, asher sam chelkenu liyached et shemo, v'goralenu lahamlich malchuto.
On this day, let us dedicate ourselves anew to the task that our ancestors tried in all their higher moments to fulfill, to bring nearer a time when all your children will understand that they are brothers and sisters, so that one in spirit and fellowship they may be forever united before you. Then shall your sovereignty be established on earth, and the word of your prophet shall be fulfilled.
Adonai Melech, Adonai Malach, Adonai Yimloch Leolam Vaed.
Giving space and skies seems not to phase the crows that plunge upon the gate. Modern pavement still glistening with early morning dew. No amount of rain is gonna wash away the blood that stains the cobblestones. No amount of rain is gonna bring back all the grass that grew. Locked in a dark room with only your loneliness for company. How many dark thoughts will have to pass through your head? The sound of some festivals told you in your dreams. Like the music of living and already dead.
the names you have read and the faces you have seen, we also remember Olga Fischer and her brother Otto, remembered by Jane Drapkin. Susanna Rysova, Hilda Rysova's daughter, remembered by Lydia from her Kabbalat Torah 2014 to 15. I'm not sure if you remember, but your mum did and she wrote in. Also of Pavel Katz, remembered by Amy. I can't remember exactly which year you went, but maybe 2016, 17. Hannah Tosikova, remembered by Hannah Fagioli Kachi. And also Eva Ornstinova, remembered by Shia, who both went on last year's Kabbalat Torah trip, 2019-20. And others have remembered the Gunzberger family who lived in Papa, Hungary. David Goldberg from Dublin writes in remembering Adolf Munk, Rudolf Lauder, Dr. Lustig, and I'm sure that there were other names that he could have written. And the whole Dublin community remember the Jews of Brandis nad Laban. Many of their members went on previous trips with Mum and Dad, and they have a scroll from that town in their synagogue in Dublin. I also want to remember all of those other people who you hold in your hearts and minds at this moment in time, who were murdered through the Shoah. We also remember our family members, Beryl Mitchelson, the mother of Jane Vugler, David Mitchelson, and grandmother of Josh, sister of Davine. David Cooper, the father of Adele Slifkin. Emmanuel Mann, the father of Peter. Hilda Shine, the cousin of Michael Gordon. Kurt Baginski, the father of William. Martha Mitchelson, a mother of Irene and Martin and grandmother to Martha. Maury Morris, the father of John. Maya Freed, the father of Raymond. Ruth Vile, the mother of Celia Naval and Maya. And Frank Gent, remembered by Emma Sadiki and the Exeter community who are watching this morning. Zecher Tzadikim Livracha. May all that was dear and good in their lives endure always as a blessing and as a continual influence for good. As we say together, Yitgadal Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma Divrach Hirutei V'yamlich Malchutei, B'chai Echon V'yom Echon V'chayei D'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'gala V'zman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Amaya, Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'al V'yitromam V'yitnaseh, V'yitada V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei D'Kudisha B'richu, Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbechata V'nechemata, Da'amiran Ba'alma V'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'yal Kol B'nei Adam, V'imru Amen.
May great peace descend from heaven, and abundant life be granted to us and to all humanity. Amen.
Amen.
Before we turn to our concluding song, Adon Olam, I think we have to say a really big thank you to everyone who made this service this morning so special. To Rabbi Andrew Goldstein for a wonderful service, to our wonderful friend, the Slovak ambassador to the UK, who chose such a wonderful passage, not just any passage about Slovakian Jews, but really about the Jews of our Torah town. To all those who participated in our service, the Crosbys, Rini and David, Neil Drapkin, Judy and Steve Herman, of course to Lydia Buffy and Sam Finkelstein for their private compositions, for sharing those, to Lydia also for singing throughout the service, to Ruth, of course, for singing. And then a very, very special thank you to Leo and John, who allowed us to pull this all together. It was not just a little bit of work. And we maybe could have given things a little bit earlier in advance, but it really, I'm sure everyone who's joining us this morning, and there are so many of you, will agree that it came together beautifully. And that's really what our community is about, that everyone pitches in and together we can create something truly beautiful. And how wonderful it was to be able to share this weekend with so many other congregations. Of course, Rabbi David Maxer last night and his congregation joined us, and I know he's joining us online as well. And we hope to see many of you in our Kiddush Zoom room after the service. The link is, as always, in the Facebook hubs as part of the title to this video. And otherwise, we will be coming back live. But I think for now, we're going to turn to our concluding song.
Only final thing I would say is that I miss being in the Czech and Slovak republics. I miss everything about it. There's something which has become part of my blood, part of my soul. And I sincerely hope that if not this year, then certainly next year, we will be back again, going to our Torah towns and making sure that we maintain the contacts within them, making sure that we support them in memorializing the Jews who used to live in their towns, and now in particular committing ourselves to the renewal of progressive Judaism within the Czech and Slovak republics. Adon Olam, Hashem Allah, B'terem kol Yetzir Nivra, V'nasa, V'hefzo kol, Azai Melech, Shamonika, Yacharei, Kiflot HaKol, Levado, Yimloch Nora, V'hu Haya, נשא בחפצו כל הזיימל שמוניקה ויחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם השם עליו בטרם כל יציר נברא נשא בחפצו כל הזיימל שמוניקה ויחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה V'tifara v'hu haya v'hu haveh V'tifara v'hu haya v'hu haveh V'tifara Yehi Adonai Eloheinu imanu ka'asher haya im avotenu. Eternal God be with us as you were with our ancestors. Al ya'azvenu, never leave us, v'al yitshenu, nor forsake us. V'hatot levavenu elav, lelechet b'chol drachov. But incline our hearts towards you and lead us in your ways. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. And if you can join us, then do please join us in a moment in our Kiddush room.